a little bit confused because we have our single property agreement, single property buyer broker representation agreement,
Yep.
amendment to real estate listing agreement, that also goes over all of this. And now this form.
Yes. So the difference, I think, Lisa, is the ones you were originally talking about, those are EXP. EXP came out with those like in anticipation, right? Of,
Okay.
is there
So I should
anything
be
wrong?
using this now.
Well, I think, you'd want to obviously talk to our broker and just see what, what they prefer. But I think they came out with that early, but now North Star MLS has come out with their version of it. I think there's no right or wrong. If you enjoy using EXPs, that's great. What I don't like about EXPs, or if you guys, I don't know if everybody on here is on different brokers here, but if your brokerage has one and it's property specific, you've got to do one every time it's a new property. And I
Yeah.
don't like that, where this one is a North Star MLS one. It's not broker specific and there's no property on it. So that's why I like it.
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask, is the ones that I've been using are property specific. So even if it's the same buyer
Yep.
looking at multiple properties,
You
okay,
got to do this every time, which
got
sucks.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Hey, Lisa, this has been on our radar, but we were going to see if our broker had a preference.
Okay.
Which, I mean, obviously Kelly's with the same broker, so
Yep.
probably it's fine. But yeah, we did see this come out in North Star, but we have been using the broker one, so that's what we have done thus far.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
And the
I,
other,
Keep
the
me
other thing
posted
is,
what's decided. Okay.
yep.
yeah, the other thing is that this North Star one is specific to Minnesota, right?
Mhm.
So that's a good thing because it applies to Minnesota. EXP was coming out with different forms and amendments and things like that were
Could be
that
used
were
everywhere.
national, right? Because there are a lot of states that don't use buyer rep agreements, and
Well,
so
they
they were
do
trying
now.
to, right, but they were trying to cover a lot, and it wasn't necessarily state specific. So this one at least is. So I think everybody should at least take it and compare with what you're using and see what's better. There's not there's not one that we can point to and say this is the one you need to use. It's just
Or like,
however you want to run your business and cover yourself.
right. Or like we said, if your broker has one that they've put out, just talk to your broker. Are you okay if I use either one, or do you have a requirement, right? So that you're not stepping on any toes there. So
That's
And
why
you
we
need
opted,
to-
that's why we opted to use that form, Lisa, is because we do a lot of business in both Wisconsin and Minnesota. And then
Makes
that way
sense.
we weren't having the agents have to determine what form to use where, and then all of a sudden having a Wisconsin buyer sign a Minnesota form.
Makes
So
sense. Okay.
yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. I was hopeful that they were going to actually make this form both for Minnesota and Wisconsin, since the MLS actually covers Western Wisconsin. But unfortunately it didn't work out that way. So
Okay. Thank you.
Bob,
Not
is there is there and I haven't reviewed really in depth the EXP forms, but even though that they're potentially property specific, is there a way that you can manipulate the form to not make it property specific? And if you want, like Kelly does with this form, allow them the same buyer three looks at houses. I'm not sure if you can just keep using that form and then just adjust it that same way.
no, so
I'm going to pull that form up here, you guys, so you have it. You can kind of see.
Yeah, there's really not. You need to have that incorporated in there. And our goal ultimately is to get them to a buyer representation contract, where now it isn't property specific, it's buyer specific, and you have them under a contract. So like I said earlier, a lot of our buyers might be not ready to go under contract. They just want to get in there. But once they establish a relationship with somebody like Lisa, and then they feel comfortable, it's easy for Lisa then to transition and to get them into a buyer broker representation full agreement where they can maybe just set it for a month, or they can set it for 6 months, or whatever they want to do at that point in time. So that's what we're seeing, is we're just seeing from our team, we're seeing a lot of transition from this form into the full buyer broker compensation agreement. Once kind of that rapport has been set between the agent and the client.
I think that's probably a really good option as well, right? You're hitting the pain point. We got to sign one of these every time we go out, you know,
Exactly.
so I guess you
Exactly.
can approach it from that standpoint too.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
okay, cool. Good. So any other questions in regards to buyers, you guys? I mean, having issues with buyers, with showings, building your value? Anything?
Cal, I think just maybe one thing, you and I have had some offline conversations about the fact that you think that this is gonna be a lot easier. You think it's gonna make it a lot easier. Maybe it wasn't buyer specific, but can you just touch on why you think it's gonna be easier?
Well, I think we did in the beginning. I love the fact that we're going to get back into our business of educating and, you know, I don't want to use the word lazy because I know none of us on here are lazy agents, but in a way we've become lazy because the market's just been so easy for the last number of years, right? So we got to just regroup and, you know, get back to really educating and being transparent with clients in regards to the process, right? So it allows us that, and which again, every time we're doing that, we're building value. So I really like that. I like that change. Plus I do think that, you know, it's easier to get these buyers under, like you said, used to signing something and under a contract. So that's more valuable to us too, right? The sooner we can get more buyers under a buyer rep contract, that's way better for us versus I'm meeting you here, I'm meeting you there, I'm meeting you there. Nobody has to commit to anything. At least now they have to commit to at least a touring agreement, right? Or a showing contract agreement. But then it's hopefully one step closer to getting them to that rep. Okay. So let's shift gears and talk about sellers. Anybody having any problems with sharing how the NAR changes affect a seller? Anybody concerns, comments, questions? Do you like it?
I'll jump in. I mean, I really have always had that conversation with the sellers, so there's really not much of a difference that I've noticed from my end of it. And I think we've probably put on, since this whole change is taking place on the 17th of August, we've probably put on 15 listings,
Nice.
and we haven't had any pushback from anybody on that. I think what we're starting to see a little bit overall in the market, we're starting to see payouts a little bit less than I would probably like to see them be. You know, all of a sudden we're starting to see a little bit more of 2.5s and 2.2s versus the 2.7s in the Minnesota, and in Wisconsin, we're starting to see pretty consistently still at the 2.4. But overall, I haven't had any issues with that with any of the sellers I've met with, and I haven't really heard of any of our team members having any issues with that as well, just because it was always talked about, because there's a portion of the listing contract that talks about buyer broker compensation. So, and again, I am one of those people who do not like to over complex things. So if you get into it too much, sometimes you might get eyebrows being raised a little bit, and like, oh, you mean I don't have to pay anything? So I don't get into it too much. I just tell them it's in their best interest to open their listing to the broader marketplace and get the best offer possible. And in doing that, offered up to the buyer broker compensation to the agents who are doing a lot of production. Not even all the ones that are doing all the production, but you never know who the buyer is that agent's representing. You know, so
I have found that I think it's a slam dunk to get your listing, right? You can go in and say, here, this is what you're committing to today to list your house, right? Is my listing fee, right? Which is X%, right? So that's all you're committing to today. And then ultimately, based on the offer, you are going to get to decide if you want to contribute towards buyer concessions, you know, and how much, right? And obviously I say the same thing as Bob. It's in your best interest to be open-minded, right? To be willing to pay a concession because that will give you the greatest amount of buyers that will be able to come to your home, right? And compete for your home. But you know, if someone comes in way under, gives you a low ball offer, obviously you have the power now, right? To be able to say, yeah, I'm willing to contribute, but maybe it's going to be a lot less than if this were a much better offer, right? So we don't have to commit to a specific number. I just want to have the conversation about, are you open to contributing to buyers' concessions? And then we can look at what the offers are and how much you're willing to contribute, right? Because the other thing I want you guys to remember is this doesn't have to be limited to, and I'm gonna use 3%, right? Because that's kind of the common thing in our industry. It doesn't have to be limited to 3%. Your seller can pay 10%. I mean, this is different from lender concession requirements, right? So just remember that it's all situation based, it's offer based, it's what does the buyer need. These are concessions a seller is willing to pay to a buyer, not broker to broker anymore. So having those like upfront conversation, I think has been awesome for me. I love it. I'm an educator. I love to tell people, and I don't have a problem going, okay, in the good old days, here's how we used to do it, right? Now it's the same, but different, right? We're just saying, be open-minded to being able to contribute because that's going to help you get the best offer. But now you're in control of how much you get to contribute based on the offer. And I think sellers really like that. They love like feeling like they've got the power given to them versus the fact that they already committed before the house even hit the market, you know, in our listing contract, right? So I think it's been great. A couple things I want to bring up that have come up. I've heard through a couple other masterminds here that these attorneys, these buyers, they're watching, they're listening to how we as agents are responding to the questions of how much is your seller willing to contribute? You know, what are we posting, right, on our social media? Be very careful, you guys. They are watching, and I can't even give you specifics in terms of like maybe what not to do, other than I would not put specific numbers anywhere. I would not be advertising anything on your seller's behalf as far as what they're willing to go up to. You certainly can say your seller is willing to negotiate buyer concessions or whatever our brokers have given us as that standard line. But I would not be committing to a number anywhere and opening yourself up to, again, pigeonholing a certain number or driving any traffic to a certain specific number, okay? I had an agent reach out to me and said, hey, Kelly, I'm interested in your listing at XYZ Main Street. Is your seller willing to contribute to my buyer's concessions? And if so, how much, right? And my response was, yes, it's negotiable based on your offer. That's all I said, right? So they know we're willing and I'm not committing to anything. And so I would encourage you guys, never, you're representing your seller at this time, never predetermine an amount they're willing to pay, right? Everything's negotiable based on the offer. So get engaged. I will tell you guys in additional masterminds that are specific to or podcasts or things like that you can listen about kind of the fallout or the future of the, you know, how these things are playing out, right? Listen to the pros, the cons, listen to the good, the bad, the ugly, because we're in this honeymoon phase. Things are going to change. We've rolled this out. We're all digesting it. And what's going to get regurgitated or re-vomited up might be some different version of what we're doing even today, right? So keep mindful of that. Keep the industry awareness in front of you as we go through this. But you know, that's what I'm listening to is like they're paying attention, and there's going to be some additional lawsuits. I mean, we're already seeing lawsuits from a bunch of realtors in Michigan in regards to how they feel this has affected them, right? And unfair and blah, blah, blah. So I think there's gonna be a few more things like that pop up, but just stay aware of what's going on in the industry as we're really dealing with these changes. So I saw
think-
Chris, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think you also have to be careful. Like Kelly said, when agents call you up and they say, you know, what's your seller willing to contribute to pay me, right? It's just like asking, you know, is your seller willing to take $50,000 less than list price? I mean, you can't say yes or no, right? I mean, you can't speak for your seller. And so you can't speak for your seller in this area or arena. I think part of that comes as education that we need to do for other real estate agents and just let them know. Did you know, because obviously you haven't read your paperwork, that in the purchase agreement, you can ask for that, right? That's where your ask is going to be. Don't call me, right? Your ask is going to be in the purchase agreement, and we're going to be able to negotiate everything from that standpoint.
Mhm.
So I think we need to also educate other agents as well as our buyers and sellers.
Yeah. I think the two good things that I feel have come out of this from a seller standpoint is hopefully sellers will get better offers if a buyer needs help, right? They're not going to come in and lowball and then ask. I mean, they can, but you know, odds are they'll get better concession help potentially with better offers, right? So that'll be good for sellers. And like I said, giving the seller the ability to kind of have that power or feel like they have that power is good. But I think as agents too, it's helpful because in the past, you know, everybody does things differently, but I'll just share, you know, our experience. If we've discounted, right? Like I'm like, okay, if we'll do it for 5, what ended up happening is I would be like, we'll keep 2.5, we'll pay out 2.5. It's a win-win, right? Or we'll keep 2 because we still wanted to always offer 3 as maximum incentive through the MLS, right? And we were the ones getting shortchanged as the listing agent, and we're doing all the work, right? We have the expenses, we have all of that. Now what I love is I think we're going to be able to keep more money in our pocket. Here's my listing fee. Now, Mr. Seller, you want to save some money? You can negotiate with the buyer and the buyer concession, right? So now that's where the negotiating happens, not on your end as the listing agent, which I think is going to be great for us. You know, not that we discounted a lot, but it was, you know, I just think it'll help us keep more money in our pocket. Chris Nelson, if you're tapped in here, or Arlen, I'm not sure. You guys are over at Edina. Is Edina doing anything different that you can share with us in regards to either side, buyer or seller? Maybe they're not on. Okay. Larry, how about you? Maybe they're just on.
Well,
Oh.
I guess it takes me a minute to on audio here. I'm not really doing anything different per se with the sellers and the buyers than you are saying. The one thing I did do is on the touring agreement, I have the ability to edit PDFs and stuff. So I edited that, made it a little bit more personal. Then I put it onto a blank transaction desk form so that I could save it, and it's got my logo on it and stuff. So it's a little bit more personalized. And then I added the agency stuff that talks about, you know, the agency. And I made so I made a PDF that's both of those documents together. And then I either send that out through, you know, DocuSign to sign for them to read it and sign it, and we can go over it. Or I also made a fillable PDF that where they can fill in their name and stuff and the date. And I don't know, I'm assuming that's legal. Maybe it's not. I think it's a little bit of a gray area. But anyway, I think I'll do it that way until somebody says that's not legal.
Larry, are you your own broker?
I am, yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, you know, I applaud you for trying to make it simple and personalized, but I would just tell you guys, you know, if you're going to do that, make sure your broker's okay with it and make sure that it's, you know, within compliance, right? You don't want to change something that might take you out of compliance or put you in a, you know, a legal situation. So But yeah, hey, good to know you're that techie, Larry. We might be calling you with questions.
Well, I'm learning every day and, a couple of years ago, I wanted to make a fillable PDF, so I Googled how do you make a fillable PDF and it's surprisingly easy.
I love that.
So,
Love it. Well, good. I'm glad that you're kind of embracing it and making it your own. Anybody else doing anything different than the standard MLS forms or gotten anything from their broker? Okay. Well, good. Well, I'm hopeful that, I mean, we're at the end of the hour here, so that's good. It took up a lot of time. Wasn't sure if we were gonna be able to fill the whole hour, but I'm hoping you guys are embracing the changes and, seeing the value for you personally and our industry. I'm gonna part with this ending comment. I think our industry as a whole has gotten a bad rap for years and years and years and years, right? I think we're just slightly above the used car salesman, in the chain of of hierarchy here. But I think a lot of that is we've created our own monsters in this, right? We've discounted, we've done this, we've been the one to maybe not do the best behavior actions to create some of that bad juju out there or bad, what's the word I'm looking for? Like view upon our industry. So I think these changes will help us build professionalism, will build value, will show people why they need us. And so, go out there, you guys, and be good agents. Do this the right way. Educate your clients and bring professionalism back to our industry. And I think that's where this is leading. So hopefully we'll get the agents who don't want to do the work to get out, and the good agents will stay in business here and continue to, do good work for their clients. So any last minute questions, comments, parting things before we head out? Awesome. Well, next week, I think Bob is going to share client appreciation marketing. So if you guys are doing events out there and you want to look at how he markets those events, and we'll talk about maybe some best practices and things, we hope you join us next week. Otherwise, thanks again for sharing your Wednesday morning with us, you guys, and have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, you guys.
Bruce.
Go finish your beer, Bruce.
Sweet.
Hey, how
I want
did Jen
Coors
stay on,
Light when you can drink.
stay on? Because I want to quick ask you, when is your appointment? Don't you have an
Me?
appointment this week? Yeah.
What kind of an appointment?